So, I was watching a video the other day, a video by Matt at Basking Through Stories. If you haven't checked out Matt's channel, you really should. I found him quite recently and he's awesome. Great recs, especially for fantasy and sci-fi, but he reads like really broadly. Go check him out, his link below. Anyway, Matt posted a video, top 10 sci-fi books of all time, right? And I was like, I love sci-fi. I'm going to see how many I've read. I bet I've read loads. I'd read two out of 10. 2. And I was like, do I even read sci-fi? So I'm going to talk to you today about my absolute favourite top 10 sci-fi books, and let's just go. In at number 10 we have Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and this is a super fun novel. It's got sort of time travel in it. You're never quite sure what timeline you're in. It's got thrillery kind of vibes to it, super fast paced. I think if people like thrillers or crime or mysteries, I think this is like a perfect sci-fi book for you. So yes, I I do remember my head mildly exploding at about the 60% mark when I started to figure out what was going on. I was like, wait, what? And yeah, just such an excellent book. I highly recommend. That's my number 10. In at number 9 we have some classic sci-fi with Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I really wasn't sure whether to put this in here or The Martian Chronicles because I did love them both, but I decided to go for this because this was my first foray into Ray Bradbury, and it was what made me really fall in love with his writing. Bradbury writes absolutely beautifully, and in this we are in a world where books are illegal and you have firefighters who effectively go around and burn them. And I think that's all you really want to know going in, but there's some really interesting like moral dilemmas from some of the characters in this book, and it's just a super interesting premise, right? So, and Bradbury pulls it off beautifully, and there's a lot of discussion around storytelling and what is storytelling and those sorts of things. So yes, if you haven't wrapped your eyeballs around a copy of Fahrenheit 451, I highly recommend. In at 8th position, and we're going to stick with some classic, and we've got Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I read this for the first time a couple of years ago, and this again is just a super interesting premise, and I think that is probably the case with a lot of these more classic sci-fis. They were thought geniuses for their time, and then a lot of sci-fi that comes after it, you can see where the inspiration has come from and how they've taken bits from these classic authors. And in this, basically humans are manufactured to like different specifications in a factory, and so you have different humans that do different things based on how they were made. That's a very broad explanation of it, but again, it's one of those where you don't really want to know too much going in, but it is super fascinating. Again, really interesting characters. It does go a bit wild at the end, and I think there is a follow-up to this that I haven't read, but I would absolutely recommend that you read Brave New World. Such a good book. In at number 7 we have a graphic novel, and that's On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. This is just such a heartwarming book. It's about a crew on a spaceship. The main character, though we follow all of them, the main character sort of comes on almost as an apprentice. She's very young. She hasn't really had any family support for a long time, and it's about her. It's like a found family trope, right? But it's just beautifully illustrated, and the relationships between the different characters are really beautifully complex, and I fell in love with Tilly Walden after reading this. There is a free web version which I'll link below, and yeah, I just think it's an awesome place to start, especially if you are more interested in characters and relationships than you are in the actual sort of sci-fi elements of the book. So recommend, if you like Becky Chambers, definitely give On a Sunbeam a go. Next up we have All Systems Red by Martha Wells. So Murderbot. This is the first in quite a long series, the Murderbot series, where we follow a murderbot who is tasked with protecting some people on a planet, but would rather just effectively watch soap operas. And the level of dry, sarcastic humour in this is second to none. If you have a dry sense of humour, you should definitely pick this up. It will be for you. It's a novella, it's super short, but it packs a punch. I have read several from the series. I would say probably you only need to read the first two, and then it gets a little bit repetitive. Oh, Rudy's come to say hello. But really, really enjoyed the first one in the series. All systems read. It was a brilliant, brilliant read. In at number 5, we have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This book has had a lot of love on BookTube. Apologies, Rudy's come for a cuddle. And this follows a guy who he sort of wakes up with amnesia. He's on a spaceship on his own and he doesn't really know what the hell has happened, why he's there, what he's supposed to be doing. And the level of comedy that Andy Weir inserts through the whole book, but especially that scene at the beginning, sticks with me vividly. There were so many laugh out loud moments, and we sort of discover why he's on the ship and what he's trying to do through flashbacks, and that whole thing is really well done, the sort of switching between the flashbacks and the current timeline. And there is a character later on in this book that I just adored. For those that know, we all know I'm talking about Rocky. So yes, really enjoyed this. Again, I would say it's quite easy access sci-fi. So if you're not really a sci-fi reader, but you want to try something, this is really good. The audiobook is also fabulous. Look, he's got my wool. This situation is happening behind camera right now. The audiobook is really, really good. So well narrated, some really lovely sound effects and stuff throughout that just add a lot to it. So if you are going to pick it up, I would recommend audio. It's a teeny bit science heavy in parts, but to be honest, the main narrative, the characters, Rudy, the level of comedy just makes it all 100% worth it. Well, you did it. Yeah, you walnut. In at number 4, we have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So this is basically Hunger Games on Mars. And I loved it. It's super brutal. Super, super brutal. So, I guess, maybe more Battle Royale on Mars. But so well done. The political stuff in the background. You have people who are living in space who are all different colours, and reds are sort of one of the lowest colours. They're on Mars, they mine, and golds are the elite, and you sort of see this social hierarchy that is just not working well. And yeah, absolutely adored it. There are 6 books out in this series now. I've read 5 of them. I would say the initial trilogy, the first trilogy, is really strong, and then I can take it or leave it after that. But Red Rising in particular is an excellent, excellent book, and you should defo go get your hands on a copy of that. In at number 3, The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I adored this book. This is sort of post-apocalyptic fantasy, sci-fi. It kind of crosses many genres, and we have multiple perspectives in this as well. There's a really interesting magic system in here, and we're just on this planet that is effectively dying and not doing well, and there's a lot of weather events and things that are concerning on all levels, and it's just thrilling to read. It's really difficult to put down. I know that Alice from Alice on the Giant Bookshelf read it more recently than me, so she has got a better review of it on her September wrap up. I'll try and link it below. But yes, this is the start of a trilogy and I really need to continue it, but the first book was awesome. In at second place, it wouldn't be my channel if I didn't put Becky Chambers in pretty near the top, and I've decided to go for The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is her first book in the Wayfarer series. The Wayfarer series is a series of 4 books. I would say they do not need to be read in any particular order. They're all set in the same world but following different characters, and I've put this one on because it was what made me fall in love with her writing. She has some super interesting ideas. This is another crew-based novel where we're following various different characters who are part of the crew of the Wayfarer, a ship called the Wayfarer. Spaceship, obviously, not sailing ship. And the way that Chambers sort of has all these different ideas around different species and how they may interact, and lots of things around representation and sexuality, and yeah, just really beautifully written, beautiful characters and beautiful ideas. And if you haven't read Becky Chambers, you need to sort your life out. And then my absolute favourite sci-fi book of all time, which may not even be a sci-fi book, but it's going in. It's more dystopian, but dystopian is a subgenre of sci-fi, right? Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. This book was so good. So this is set in a world where people can no longer eat animal meat, and so they eat human meat. And we follow the assistant manager of a human abattoir. And yeah, there are some moments in this that make you consider whether you should eat meat. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, I think you will feel quite validated by this book. If you are a meat eater, as I am, you may not want to be eating a bacon sandwich as you read the book, because you may vomit in your own mouth. But it's really interesting ideas, really dark, really dark. The main character is beautifully grey, and the ending blew my mind. So yes, those are my 10 favourite sci-fi novels that I have ever read in my entire life. I would love to know how many of these you've read, if there's any that you think I should add to my list. I'm sure there are many. And I will see you all very soon with another one. Bye guys.